So, Indiana Jones. I watched these movies as a kid, but then kinda hopped off the franchise for years to the point where I barely remember anything. And last year, Dial of Destiny came out, and I knew I wanted to watch all 5 movies in order as one complete package. The results? Interesting. I like Indiana Jones, but when it comes to super nostalgic franchises, this is definitely one I have like the least strong opinions on. None of these movies are bad. Okay, one of them is. But I don't think any of them are like all-time classics for me. Okay, one of them is. Overall, I like Indiana Jones quite a bit, but it's definitely not a series I'm gonna be revisiting over and over, unlike some others. But I still want to talk about them, so let's do that. Come on, here's a novice's ranking of all 5 Indiana Jones movies. Let's go!
I love chai tea.
What did you just say?
Chai tea? Chai means tea, bro. You're saying tea.
Temple of Doom has the crowning achievement of being dumb and bad. I want to start with the positives. Trust me, this won't take long. Short Round is excellent. He's a delightfully adorable little rascal who has excellent and endearing chemistry with Indy himself. I'm so glad his actor, who I'm not going to say the name of because I will mispronounce it and I will look stupid, is getting the delayed popularity streak he deserves. This movie is also just like really out there. Like, once we get to the cult stuff, there is some wild, horrific stuff that happens, and that was surprising, while also being very cheesy and very fun. There's some fun action. I like the climax battle on the bridge. Okay, but seriously, that's kind of where my compliments end. If we aren't counting things like the directing, the score, the set design, there's not much to say. I really do not like the story or characters in this one, except Short Round. Let's start with that script. Compared to the mysteries of all the other movies, this one feels exceedingly simplified. There's not much build-up to the things that happened outside of the idea that these really lame stones have vague powers that kind of pays off at the end. Good job. But otherwise, we're kind of just like, we keep moving. We open in Japan, and then we're in India, and then we're at a starving village, and they send us to a temple where there's this horrible, unfunny, awful dinner party scene, and so on. And then we find the cult, and then things just kind of happen from that point on. Yay! The cult is okay, but it is such a strange antagonistic force when compared to the real-world militaristic evils that are featured in every other movie. Be them Nazis or Russians, they are real. And yes, cults exist, death cults exist, but it's such a far cry from what works about this series to me. Mullah Ram is a Saturday morning cartoon villain who happened to invent the PG-13 rating. He's just kind of boring. He's a cult leader, whoopee, cool design and all, but there is nothing to his character outside of he can rip your heart out, and that is in fact scary. I just don't find him compelling as a villain. Willie Scott is easily the worst thing about this movie. She is obnoxious. She complains about everything and is never even once partially endearing, likable, or funny. By the way, this movie is trying so hard to be funny and it doesn't succeed once. Indy, who wasn't exactly a well-developed character in Raiders, is a block of wood in this one. I don't buy his connection with Willie at all. Their romance is so weak. There's zero chemistry. I hate every scene with the two of them. It's just unpleasant. The action scenes are mostly pretty fun, except this minecart chase that goes on for like 8 years or something. I don't know. I don't like it very much. I'm sorry. I know this one probably is like the fan favorite because that's typically how it goes when I hop onto an old series, but anyway, I'm gonna move on to the rest of these movies, which I like more.
Time travel! I see this as an absolute win.
Okay, so I actually think Dial of Destiny and Crystal Skull are both similar levels of quality, but have pros and cons reversed from one another. Ultimately though, I had to choose which one I enjoyed more, so Dial of Destiny is in fourth. This one's big weakness really comes from a couple things: the length and the action. The action here is just not very good. There's a lot of it too, and it always lasts a really long time. Whenever there's action, I'm kinda bored. However, I think this movie really excels with the simple character interactions, as well as its artifact. The dial itself is really cool, and there's some super fun, wacky stuff that goes on in the climax. It just takes a really long time to get to that climax. Do the final 40 minutes or so make the whole movie worth it? I mean, I think so. Like it's some really fun stuff, and it's not like it's a bad movie. Just a long one. You feel the runtime. The other elephant is the lack of Steven Spielberg in the directing side of things. It's very felt. This movie probably is the worst Indiana Jones movie from a filmmaking perspective. It just lacks the same energy that the others have, you know? Like, the opening 2 minutes of Crystal Skull have more flair than this entire movie. Anyway, now onto what works. These characters. Old Man Indy is fun. This is pretty much exactly how I'd picture him as an old man, and Harrison does a good job for what will almost certainly be his final time with the character. They actually try to expand on Indy's character here, give him a little more depth. Depth? No. Depth is what I meant to say. They give him more depth. Is it kind of funny to watch this old man do dangerous stunts and avoid Nazis? Yeah, but also kinda cool in a way. I thought Helena, or Wombat, was a super fun companion, and Teddy was pretty decent. Salo was delightful, even if his presence had serious Lando Rise of Skywalker vibes, where he ultimately is only there for you, the viewer, to recognize that cool character you like. The villain was pretty great, even if I think they wait a bit too long to explain his motives and evil plan. Like, by the time he explains it, it's literally the next scene and Indy already foils it. Still, he was definitely good, and Mads did a great job playing him. There's a couple story things that really irked me, like the whole Indy and Marion being separated thing. Plus, yeah, a lot of the action is boring. We either need to cut down the big chase in Morocco or that diving scene. Both just go on and on. I have very low action tolerance, I've discovered. I'm also just really impressed they didn't shove recognizable imagery in your face every second. They were confident in the story they were telling, and I can appreciate that. This movie doesn't really feel cynical. It genuinely feels like the team behind it wanted to give it their all and make a final Indiana Jones movie worthy of that status. Do I think they succeeded? Yeah, I think so, sure. I also liked when Teddy said the eels looked like snakes, and then Indy responded, "No, they don't!" That was pretty funny.
Here's an idea. Aliens.
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull's very negative feedback makes sense to me. I get it. The alien stuff is so dumb and feels so out of place in an Indiana Jones movie. This is definitely the worst artifact in the whole series besides the stones in Temple of Doom, because at least the Crystal Skull, looks cool. But here's my thing. The rest of this movie is so fun. I was never once bored with this movie. And it's not a so bad it's good movie. It's just genuinely a really fun movie that kept me entertained. It's not deep or anything. It's just a fun adventure with some excellent action. And visually, it may very well be my favorite Indiana Jones movie of them all. The CGI doesn't look bad, first off. That was a shock. But otherwise, this movie just has perfect colors. The first tower has so many sets that just kind of pop out. Same with the ending. I love the room with all the alien skeletons. Like, sure, the aliens might be stupid, but at least their skeletons look cool as frick. Also, comedically, this movie's a riot. There's a lot of great gags. I think Mutt is actually pretty underrated comedically. I am shocked he gets so much flack. He's genuinely a good character. It made me laugh a lot. Marion doesn't add a whole lot, but it's nice to see that the best Indy love interest is his final love interest. The villain is decent. Max sucks though. What an obnoxious character. Did not like him. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly might watch this one again pretty soon. It's just that fun. It may be 2 hours, but those 2 hours fly by. I dig it. Oh yeah, also the fridge scene. Yes, it's dumb. It's one of the dumbest things in the whole franchise, but also I don't care because that whole nuke sequence is a
Say the line, Bart!
banger.
Yeah!
Such a fun movie, and I really like it in spite of its flaws. Anyway, let's move on to the two true good ones.
I like that boulder. That is a nice boulder.
Raiders of the Lost Ark is interesting because, yes, this is in fact a very good movie. Like, it's just all around solid and iconic. Part of me thinks that the iconic moments sorta outshine the movie as a whole for a lot of fans, because this one, admittedly, drags on a bit for me in the middle, especially when they're in Cairo. It's not bad or anything, just sorta slow, and the action really doesn't do it for me here, except that one great gag with Indy facing off against the dude with the sword and he just shoots him. Funny. I also think Belloc is kind of a whatever villain. He's decent, but he feels so hammily evil, so Saturday morning cartoon villain. And while it's fun, it also makes him a lot less intimidating. I'd even say that the Nazi secondary villain outshines him. That dude is creepy. Also, this is probably Indy's second most compelling characterization, but it's still not that interesting. Like, come on. But hey, didn't I say this movie was really good? Yes, I did. Indy might not be all too interesting to be here, but he's super charismatic. Flawed protagonist who can pull off these insane stunts and hijinks without feeling invincible. it still feels like this man can die. Like that fist fight where he fights the buff Nazi in front of the plane. That's intense. You feel every punch. Or even that opening temple adventure, which of course is just ludicrously iconic. I think that's a big thing with this one. More than any other Indiana Jones movie, including the one I think is a lot better, this one feels like a groundbreaking cinematic achievement. This feels like one of the biggest and most iconic movies in history because it very much is. Spielberg absolutely earned this as one of his most recognizable works. I love Marion, obviously, easily the best indie love interest, not that there's much competition. Their dynamic is a lot of bickering, sure, but it kind of works because you also feel that these two have a messy history and ultimately do care for each other. Anywho, Sala is wonderful, of course. The action is mostly pretty good, and obviously, the ending, holy moly. The scene where Belloc opens the Ark is absolutely nuts. Like, I forgot just how crazy this ending really is. The Nazi's face melts! What in the world? It is incredible that Spielberg ends his biggest movie ever at this point in time with God himself smiting all the Nazis in awe-inspiring fashion. Just absolutely iconic. I love the little jokes. It's Raiders of the Lost Ark, and yet, there's one that's like way better. This one that's just like way, way better. Holy crap, The Last Crusade is easily the best Indiana Jones movie. It takes the elements that worked in both its predecessors and dials them up to 11. It mixes the exciting adventure and slow burn mystery of the first movie with the insane shenanigans of the second movie. But, like, they're actually fun this time. And it adds a ton of heart, supporting characters who really rule, some fantastic action scenes, and, for the first time, a proper character arc for Indiana Jones himself. This was the first time he was ever an interesting character, with his dynamic with Henry Jones Sr., his father, being the highlights of the film from a writing perspective. I was genuinely impressed. Henry, also, takes the cake for my favorite character in the whole series. He has a strong character arc and is super funny, while also being sort of the emotional center of the movie. Despite how sweet he is, he's clearly not a great father to Indy, and there's a lot of really well done conversations between the two. They build it up so well, and at the end, even though you know Henry's gonna save Indy, it's still remarkably satisfying when he does. The rest of the supporting cast is really fun too. Marcus Brody is a stellar comic relief character. I got really attached to him, to the point where those bad guys breaking his statue in Crystal Skull hurt my feelings. Marcus was just a silly little goober. Sala, as always, is a delight to see, and the villains, oh my gosh. Donovan is just Belloc if he wasn't a cartoon character. He feels real and sinister. I enjoyed him a ton, as the de facto big bad of the movie. But Elsa Schneider really steals the show and is the single best villain in the entire series. What a cool move to have the love interest be a Nazi who betrays Indy. The villains are technically twists, but they're revealed pretty early on, leaving us with plenty of time to be aware of the truth. Plus, Donovan freaking spells it out at the beginning, so whatever. Elsa is so memorable to me because unlike any other villain in the series, you can tell she has some humanity. When the Nazis are burning all the books, she looks genuinely uncomfortable. Plus, she grows to have genuine feelings for Indy, which is really interesting, and adds an almost bittersweet pang to her death. But I mean, she's still helping Hitler, so I actually do not care. Oh, and speaking of Hitler, yeah, he gets a cameo in this that turns out to be a gag, and it's so funny that I can't spoil it. Also, the action is stellar. That tank fight is probably my favorite action sequence in the entire series. Plus, the jokes are genuinely really funny. I love the sequence where Indy and Henry are tied up. It's just really funny. What I think Last Crusade's genuine claim to fame has to be, though, for me, was that it's the only Indiana Jones movie where I cared about the actual story and the adventure. The movie puts in the effort to have multiple reasons why the treasure is desirable. Henry has a lifelong obsession with it. The Nazis want it so Hitler can become immortal. Then there's other factions who are interested in it in different ways. Oh, and the Grail Knight is so cool, and Donovan's death is also really cool, and man, this is the Indiana Jones movie for me. I mean, out of all the Indiana Jones movies, this is the one I'll be revisiting the most. I already want to watch it again, and if you had to watch one movie on this list, I mean, do Raiders from, like, a film history perspective, that's more important. But follow it up with this one. You do not need to watch Temple of Doom.